Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our Wednesday Lunch and Learn, our NAMI Lunch and Learn. Today, we're going to have Tiffany Burkiness speak to us about supporting youth mental health well-being and well-being. She is the 4-H Career Pathways Academy and Mental Well-being Specialist for Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. She is, in addition to 4-H, her career has included being an art teacher and educator for TRIO Upward Bound and Gear Up college access programs and college admissions and residence life. Tiffany has personal and professional passions for mental health and diversity, equity, and inclusion, including lived experience with multiple co-occurring mental health conditions that sparked her interest in bringing mental health awareness and education to Iowa 4-H when she started 6 years ago. She completed the Mindful Schools Educator Essentials course and developed the 4-H Mindful Teen from Surviving to Thriving curriculum that has reached more than 1,000 Iowa youth. She has trained over 250 youth serving professionals and volunteers from within and outside of Iowa to facilitate the Mindful Teen program. Additionally, she's led the development of the Iowa 4-H Thrive Youth Adult Mindfulness Retreat and serves on the Iowa 4-H Youth Mental Health and Wellbeing Champion Group and West Des Moines Human Rights Commission. Thank you, Tiffany, for being here.
All right, I think that's my cue. Thank you so much, Joanna, for the welcome. I'm so happy to be here this morning. And like she said, my name is Tiffany Burkiness. My pronouns are she, her. And you'll see in the chat if anybody wants to share or even just to take a moment to think about something that you are grateful for. Not everyone got to wake up this morning. And so even if it's something, the smallest thing is to just be grateful for that today. And so before I wanted to preface and before I start my presentation is today is kind of difficult for me. Within the last few days, I have been with family because I had a cousin who died by suicide just within the last few days. And so her funeral was yesterday in Indiana. And last week I thought about, because this was very difficult, I thought about trying to reschedule this. But then I thought about Allison, my cousin, and the reason why I do what I do. And it was important to me to still push through and do this today because really it really emphasizes the importance of talking about and being open about mental health, feelings and emotions, even at an early age. And how can we start those conversations and have those conversations to help reduce stigma, to help eventually get more accessible, quality and affordable mental health care. And then it also, by us speaking out and talking about it, it empowers other people to seek help and ultimately save lives. So it really means a lot to me that you're here to listen or listening to the recording at a later date. And so I dedicate today's presentation and the fact that I'm sticking through it to Allison. And one other quick thing too is one thing that, like she had mentioned, Joanna mentioned in my bio, is my personal experience with mental illness, thoughts of suicide and conditions. And that truly was the inspiration. So turning my pain into purpose and passion. So that's why I'm here today. And we're going to go ahead and dive in because I know I have a limited amount of time and there's a lot to cover around mindfulness. And so I'm happy to share with you it's a mindset. Mindfulness is a mindset, and also positive and healthy coping strategies that research and evidence shows will reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and manage difficult emotions, as well as improve our overall well-being and understanding that all dimensions of our wellness are connected. It also helps with our relationships, how we perform in school, activities, and at work. And the awesome thing about mindfulness too is it doesn't have to cost you anything. It's accessible at anywhere, at any time, and you can do it no matter who you are, what your background is or experience. And then also there are some practices you can do even without anyone knowing that you're doing them. So let's go ahead and start with, I'm going to see if I can get, there we go, advance the slide. Let's start with a mindful check-in before we move forward. And so if you could maybe first set aside any distractions you may have, and you can do this sitting or standing up. And we're just going to take a few breaths in at your own pace and a few breaths out. You're welcome to stretch your arms overhead and then lean over in a forward standing fold, or again, if you're more comfortable, or unable, you can stay seated in doing that. So go ahead and just take a few moments to breathe. All right, thank you for doing that with me. And so this is one thing, especially when we work with youth too, is there can be a lot of people and young people that are skeptical about what mindfulness is. And that's okay. And so I just invite you all to have an open mind and an open heart. And so letting go of any expectations or ideas you might have about mindfulness, that this whole meditation thing is stupid or it'll never work for me, or that it's only meditation. And in the positive, that perhaps or mindfulness, mindfulness is going to solve all my problems. And instead, I'm going to try this out and see whether anything interesting happens that I can apply in my life. So stay curious and stay open. So let's go ahead and kick it off with a pretty powerful video. It's short, about mindfulness and about kind of the stressors that our adolescents, particularly middle school students, are experiencing.
Middle school can be really hard sometimes.
One of my biggest stresses is the homework at school. Sometimes you get piles and piles and piles. You get projects and more projects plus homework.
Like, I need to get it done.
I'll be doing my homework and then the phone rings.
You want to answer it, you want to look at it, but at the same time, you don't.
There's so many things you can do on the phone.
I use social media, Twitter, Instagram. I text my friends, I watch YouTube, etc.
There have been stupid arguments over text messages sometimes.
I'm not sure what they're gonna say, how they're gonna say it. What should I say back to them? When I hit send, my fingers all trembling because I'm like, is this the right thing to say? Should I say something else? Should I just send it? No. Send it? No. Press send. It's done. Now I gotta wait for the response.
As a 7th grade girl, the popular kids might say, you should do your hair like this, you should wear this kind of makeup, you should do just things like that to get girls to be like worried about what people think.
And it's a lot of pressure to not be wearing makeup, so you never know if you're like as pretty as the people who are wearing makeup.
My friends were getting bullied a lot because of the 8th graders and the 7th graders think that they're the best.
Sometimes people aren't nice to you, and that's how it is in the real world, but gets to be a lot. It just makes me upset.
I think people are afraid people are gonna be talking about them. Like if you feel embarrassed or if you made a mistake or something, then I just feel very trapped.
It feels awful, so I try to do everything perfect.
My schedule is tense, busy, and really tiring because I actually cram a lot of things into one day.
I have due dates, I have school, I have activities with band. It clutters in my mind and I think, how am I going to deal with this?
I kind of just start to like shut down.
Well, my stomach always feels like very in knots.
I think my brain's like on overdrive. There's a bunch of papers just flying through my brain and there's people running around and there's a fire in there.
I get a lot of anxiety when I have a lot of pressure put on me.
Pressure.
Expectation.
It's a lot to take in when you know it's on you.
So before we finish the video, I just want you to pause and think about maybe some of the physical sensations or feelings that come up when you watch that first part of that video. Even us as adults, if that's who's watching this, is or listening, that we have those similar feelings too. But thinking of our young people and where they are developmentally and the pressures that they have all around them, and also thinking about the future and the access to technology and just how even more difficult that is with the stress and managing all of that. And so now we're going to watch the rest of it and think about, see the difference between the two.
You can begin by closing your eyes, getting in a posture where your back is straight, steady like a mountain, but your muscles are soft and relaxed. And then go ahead and bring your hand up to your chest, placing it over your heart or on your chest, wherever it feels comfortable. And then just feel your body breathe. Just noticing as you inhale, the rising of your chest. As you exhale, the falling of your chest. And just staying with this gentle rhythm of your breathing. And you might have some thoughts that come in, that you become distracted. That's okay, that's the nature of the mind. We just gently redirect our attention and come back to feeling our hand on our stomach as we breathe. And when you're ready, you can put your hands down and open your eyes. When we bring our attention and we concentrate on feeling our breathing, it can help to calm down that storm that we might be feeling, that sense of overwhelm or frustration or upset. Because one thing that happens is that we can get stuck thinking that whatever we're thinking, feeling, or feeling physically won't.
Oops. I'm not sure why that just stopped. But if you notice too now, in comparison to the first section, how different you may feel, whether the physical sensations or just watching it, maybe a little less anxious. And so imagine our world and our communities and our schools and our families if we really took some intentional time and moved away from being human doings back to being human beings, and how different our world would be, more empathy and compassion, more patience and understanding, in addition to reducing those difficult feelings and emotions. And also just being able to experience the world with a more mindful presence. Oops, okay. There we go. Let's talk real briefly about stress before we go into mindfulness. And thinking about stress, it arises in our response to a challenging situation in life, and it can be really difficult to handle, but knowledge is power. And so once you understand what stress does to your body and mind, you'll be more empowered to handle it better. So it's actually a good thing that we can experience stress. Our body's stress response is designed to help us survive danger, and our heart starts racing, our breath gets quicker and shallower to supply more oxygen to our heart and muscles. Our muscles get tense, but our body and our brain are very deeply connected. Stress helps us become more alert, focus better, have more energy, and perform better. But the problem is when that stress level gets too high or stays for too long. And that's when chronic stress can lead to more serious mental health problems, as well as your mood and energy levels get low, and anxiety, the worries, the nervousness, the panic. And it also can lead to physical problems such as digestive issues, muscle pain, fatigue, difficulty sleeping. So we can respond to stress in two different ways, with positive or negative coping strategies. Negative means you're attempting to escape or cover up that stress in ways that might be harmful to yourself or others, such as smoking, drinking, fighting, skipping school, maybe video game addiction, eating disorders, self-harm. And positive helps you to handle stress in a healthier way. And so examples of that could be going for a walk or talking to a trusted friend, listening to relaxing music and stepping away, exercising, reading. And so with this stress cycle, stress creates that discomfort. And then those two different arrows, you can choose negative coping strategies or positive coping strategies. Our negative coping strategies, even though those may feel better in the moment, because they can create physical or mental harm to ourselves or others, eventually it's going to also create more stress, and you're stuck in this vicious cycle. Whereas if you practice more positive coping strategies, and that includes mindfulness, and then you will not only have relief, but there are long-term benefits. So mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And non-judgmentally, not only towards others, but also ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings, and being kind to those. There are some other words listed there as well that to describe mindfulness. Mindfulness is not a disciplinary tactic. It's not only calmness and happiness, but recognizing and acknowledging any feelings or thoughts that you're experiencing in that moment. It's not a cure for everything that is distressing, but it helps. It's not the absence of thought. Sometimes that's a misperception. It's not necessarily religious. It can be. One example of mindfulness or meditation is prayer, but that is not relevant for everyone. And so there are different forms of mindfulness. And so it's a practice that's very individual in a personal experience. It's also not only meditation, which a lot of people confuse that too, that there are several other components to mindfulness. So let's take another mindful pause to reflect. You're welcome to share in the chat. I know for our time, we can also just think about this, but what is one thing in your life or the world that you would like to more fully enjoy or experience if you intentionally gave it more present moment awareness and your entire focus and attention without distractions was focused on that? So just take a couple seconds to think about that. One thing that immediately comes to mind too, and I am so guilty of this, is nowadays with technology and social media is always feeling like I have to take pictures or videos of something I'm doing or experiencing. And that takes me away from actually giving that attention or that person attention or that experience and fully enjoying that. All right, so if they're wondering if you have ever experienced emotions that make you feel like you're out of control. I think we all have, and experienced saying or doing something you immediately wish you could take back. We tend to be reactive. So for example, when someone says something we don't like to hear, we react. Sometimes we say something that we'd like to take back the moment after we blurt it out, or we get knocked down by a heavy emotion and it can take a long time to bounce back. So mindfulness helps us create that space between a strong emotion, that stimulus, and our actions. So it becomes more of a response, a thoughtful, intentional response rather than the reaction. If we just slow down and we take a pause and we observe before we proceed. We learn to deal with positive and negative experiences more calmly and make better decisions. When we pay attention to our own thoughts and feelings, we become more mindful and appropriate without hurting our own feelings or the feelings of others. There's two types of mindfulness. One is formal and one is informal. Formal mindfulness is when you're actually taking time out of your day for mindful practice, like meditation, coloring, yoga, a five senses walk, where you're going outside and thinking about all of your five senses and noticing what you feel, what you can hear, what you can see, what you can touch, guided visualization or a body scan. And 2 to 5, 30 minutes or whatever works for you. If you're a beginner, you can start small and then you can make it grow as you get more comfortable and used to it. Anytime or anywhere is informal mindfulness. And so informal mindfulness is bringing that mindful awareness to everyday routine activities, doing one thing at a time with full presence. So you may think you're too busy and when you're going to have time for mindfulness, some of that formal mindfulness, when really you can set a time and just find joy in any activity that you're doing throughout the day. These are examples of formal mindfulness. We've mentioned a couple of them, the deep breaths or silent breathing meditation with just as few as 3 breaths before a presentation, before a big game or a difficult conversation can reduce stress. The body scan, oftentimes that can be really great before bedtime. And a lot of these you can find there's some great mindfulness mobile apps, as well as some on YouTube. And then there's some scripts that you can read as well online. Meditations, loving kindness, I'm hoping to have time to practice that later. Gratitude, yoga, and there's some other ones there as well. Informal mindfulness, and thinking, especially with that mindful listening and that mindful communication. And so how are we giving full attention to who we are interacting with rather than just listening to respond? And so if you're sharing something important with a friend or someone else, just imagine how you would want them to listen and to respond and how you would feel. And then in a stressful situation, you can also access a guided meditation, or you can, if you don't have access to a guided meditation, you can just simply close your eyes and imagine a safe or a happy place for a minute while taking a breath and just kind of escape that for a bit. Even envisioning success, closing your eyes and envisioning success can be a good idea before a big event or a big conversation. Bells of mindfulness are things that you hear or see that can remind you throughout the day to be mindful. It shifts you out of that autopilot and wakes you up to that present moment. And so these are some examples. If you hear laughter, maybe you hear a siren or an alarm, you hear birds chirping at a red light, that's a reminder. Take a few deep breaths. Or think of something that you're grateful for, or even a phone reminder. I have a smartwatch, and so I will set a 10 a.m. and a 2 p.m. Reminder to either get up and do a mindful walk or to take a few breaths. And so we're going to move into our first formal example of a formal mindful practice. And so thinking about and you're welcome to throw this in the chat too if you want to guess, but how many times do you think we breathe in and out each day? And I was very surprised by this when I first learned it. So we breathe in and out 20,000 times a day, but how many of those breaths are we consciously aware of? And how many of those breaths do we actually enjoy? Probably not many, but yet breathing is what keeps us alive. And many people have health challenges that prevent them from fully being able to breathe or do it on their own. And so if we can be mindful of our breath and use that as an anchor and bring our awareness and our attention back to our breath in moments of stress, then that really helps. So let's go ahead and do a breathing meditation. You can do this. You're invited to close your eyes. You certainly don't have to. If you do introduce and teach mindfulness to especially young people, in order to be trauma sensitive, it's important that you don't request that they close their eyes. You can simply gaze forward, whatever you're comfortable with.
Welcome to mindful breathing. We'll begin this meditation by listening to one sound of the bell. As you hear the sound, you can stop whatever it is you are doing. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. You can just be fully here right now. As the sound fades away, you can choose to close your eyes if that's comfortable to you, or if you prefer, you can keep your eyes open and look down without focusing on anything in particular. Now bring your awareness to your breath. Notice what it feels like to breathe in and breathe out. You don't need to change your breath. You don't need to control it in any way. Just notice what it feels like to breathe in and out naturally, right here and right now. If it helps, you can say silently to yourself as you breathe in and out. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. In, out. See if you can notice the beginning of your breath in, following your in-breath from the beginning to the middle to the end. Noticing the slight space between your in-breath and your out-breath. And following the out-breath from the beginning to the middle to the end. Perhaps imagining that your breathing is like waves on the ocean. As you breathe in and out, you're floating on the waves, riding the wave of your in-breath, riding the wave of your out-breath. As you breathe in and out, you may notice yourself getting distracted by sounds, by sensations in your body, or perhaps by thoughts. Distractions are normal. If you notice yourself getting distracted, you don't need to judge yourself or feel that you're doing anything wrong. Instead, as best you can, just notice when you've been distracted. Notice where your mind has gone off to. And then, gently, as best you can, bring your awareness back to the present moment, back to the breath. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. In, out. As you continue to breathe in and out, focus your attention on one part of your body where it's easiest to notice the breath. Perhaps it's the tip of your nose, feeling the cool air coming in, the warm air coming out. Or perhaps it's your belly, feeling your belly rise and fall with each breath. As best you can, keep your awareness at that spot, noticing the in-breath and the out-breath, noticing perhaps any differences between one breath and the next. We'll end this meditation with one sound of the bell. As you hear the sound, you can open your eyes if they were closed and thank yourself for practicing this meditation.
All right, think about, or you're welcome to share how that felt. There's no wrong answer. And maybe something that surprised you. I see there's a few things in the chat. I see they're guessing on the breaths. And remember to any length of time can work with this. And as he was talking about, as far as feeling your breath and maybe your belly rise and fall, with young children, having them use like a stuffed animal or something and placing it on their stomach and then feeling the rise and fall, sometimes that physical connection can really help with that too, or any age. We're never too old to have stuffed animals. So that's an option as well. So just keep in mind that breath and how important that is and bringing your mind to that when you need to. All right, so now I want to go into a little bit about, get my slides to advance. There we go. Go into a little bit about the why mindfulness, why we should incorporate that into our daily life, as well as teach it and practice it. And many of you, maybe if you're in the profession, are familiar with this, but just, I know this is a lot of information, but I think it's important to at least share some of the alarming mental illness and suicide data. There's some steep increases in depression over the last several years, and you'll see that there at the top left. In 2022, over 2.5 million youth have severe depression. And over on the right, you'll notice the impact of COVID-19. The depression, anxiety in youth doubled compared to pre-pandemic levels. So 1 in 4 adolescents globally are experiencing clinically elevated depression symptoms, while 1 in 4 are experiencing clinically elevated anxiety symptoms. And even before COVID-19, mental health challenges were the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes in young people. The suicide rate has increased nearly 60%. We do know that technology has played a role in that, among many factors. A little bit more specific to Iowa, the 2021 Iowa Youth Survey reported that 24% of Iowa 11th graders, 21% of 8th graders indicated they've thought about suicide in the last year. And racial disparities and socioeconomic disparities also play a role in the rates of mental illness and suicide. And I think this is just so heartbreaking to see this here, that for Black children, the suicide rate ages 5 to 12. We have youth ages 5 to 12 that are dying by suicide. And that's roughly 2 times higher than those similarly aged white children. Multiracial youth are at the greatest risk of depression. Those living in poverty are more likely to develop mental health conditions. And then because because of stigma and discrimination, rates are higher among LGBTQ plus youth, and those have increased recently because of a lot of anti-LGBTQ legislation. 45% have seriously considered attempting suicide. In Iowa, with the Iowa Youth Survey, it's 55%, so over half. And more than half of transgender non-binary youth have seriously considered suicide. One thing, this is where it kind of comes in as if you're an educator or youth serving professional, is how we can help, is more than 60% of youth with major depression do not receive mental health treatment for a variety of reasons. And even in states with the greatest access, nearly 1 in 3 are going without treatment. There's a couple of resources there, or sources that you can learn a little bit more about what's being done around youth mental health and how you can help. And it's important to note too, anytime you see data and research around mental health, it only includes those who actually report it or seek help. So the rates are likely higher. And National 4-H did a survey a couple of years ago. This was in 2020. And teens, our young people, are even asking for help. They see that they and their peers are struggling. It's important that we listen to them. 82% of them are calling on America to talk more openly and honestly about mental health issues. Additionally, as far as why mindfulness is important, how it can help and benefit all of us, especially our young people, the stress, depletion, anxieties become the new normal in schools, and it affects our ability to stabilize attention, connect with each other, engage in learning. But attentional stability is a cornerstone of learning, but we don't teach that in a systematic way. So we can't absorb information in fight, flight, or freeze states, and learning requires receptivity. So youth need a nervous system toolkit, and mindfulness can be a part of that. Self-regulation, which is really what a lot of mindfulness does, is that emotional regulation, is the ability to notice the condition of our nervous system and shift gears as needed. So if a young person is in an unbalanced state, they do not have that access to high-level decision-making capacities. Mindfulness, however, allows executive functions of the brain to come back online. Multitasking and speed, despite what we tend to do and hear, are not good indicators of success or productivity. And substance misuse and other conduct issues in adolescence are associated with lack of impulse control. And as the slide said earlier, is how mindfulness can create that pause before we react or respond. And it benefits youth in managing those strong impulses and reactions. It also, a lot of schools now, there's a lot of emphasis and programming and resources around social emotional learning. And so they work very well together, as mindfulness is really focused on that impulse and those reactions so that they can incorporate those social and emotional learning skills. Other ways that mindfulness is positive and healthy when you practice it, especially as it says below, consistently. Consistent mindfulness practice can literally rewire and change the brain for long-term benefits, as seen on our MRI scans. There's cognitive benefits, better focus and concentration, social emotional skills, that self-regulation we talked about, empathy and compassion and understanding, overall well-being. We've talked about this as far as decreasing stress, anxiety, and depression, but also creates a little bit of a sense of calm and increases self-esteem, improves sleep and feel happier, and then improves relationships and performance in our daily lives. And it's important to also remember that really the most important thing is that it's the frequency and the consistency rather than length of time as far as mindfulness goes. So it's okay to start short, like we had mentioned, and just practice it consistently. But it is simple, but it's not always easy. So reminding yourself that practice daily is exercising and strengthening your mindfulness muscle, just like we are with our physical muscles when we're working out. So like you're going to the gym, if you went to the gym and lifted weights just once, what do you think would happen? Maybe your muscles would be sore for a day or two, but you probably wouldn't notice any increase in muscle size or strength. If you went to the gym and lifted weights every day, on the other hand, or every other day, what would happen? Practicing mindfulness every day is like working our mindfulness muscle. The more you practice, the stronger that muscle gets, whether or not you realize it right away. And the more you meditate, the better your ability to handle stress and difficulty will be. And you'll also have more confidence in that. All right, so there are just a little bit more, that was kind of the why, a little bit more into mindfulness and some important elements and essential qualities to that. And one is loving kindness, heartfulness, friendliness, compassion, goodwill, respect, and then self-compassion. So self-compassion and also gratitude. We're not going to dive into gratitude, but there are many gratitude practices that you can incorporate in your daily life or with family or with friends. That can help and also creates a more positive, healthy life and mindset. Self-compassion means accepting yourself completely with love, kindness, just as you are. You are enough and you have many positive qualities. So people of all ages can relate to this, the challenge of self-love and self-compassion and being non-judgmental. And being kind to ourselves. We're very quick to judge ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings, how we look, how we performed in that job interview, how we performed on the basketball court. And so many of us, if I were in person with you all, if I asked you to raise your hand, if you've ever heard that negative or that self-critical inner voice that says, I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough, everyone's judging me. So believing these self-judgments as if they were true can cause an enormous amount of stress, and self-compassion and practicing that can help with that. So one thing that I do, and it's part of the Mindful Teen program, is having youth practice that. And so in the journals that they receive, they'll write down 3 I am statements. I am, and then a word that describes them. It's a positive quality or a strength. And then we go around and we say one of those out loud. And it's remarkable the response I get when I ask the question afterwards, as far as how did that feel to hear everyone say that I am strong, I am brave. And it's a very powerful response. And so that's something that you all can practice. It may seem cheesy at first, but it really is powerful. We're saying it in the mirror and taking time to do that. So let me see what time it is, if we've got a little bit of time to do a loving kindness meditation. I think what I'm going to do is, if we have time, we'll come back to this. This is actually one of my all-time favorite meditations. And so I can't remember how long it is, 3 to 4 minutes, but I want to make sure I get through a few other things.
Welcome to Loving Kindness.
A couple of practical takeaways for you too. Some other mindful practices would be 5-count breathing. So you can breathe in for 5 counts using your fingers. And this just gives you kind of a tangible thing to focus on when you do this. And then breathe out, counting your fingers back down. 5-finger breathing. With little kids, this is also helpful. Trace your fingers up and down, breathing in when you go up, breathing out as you go down. A tense and release body scan. So in addition to a traditional body scan where you bring attention to each body part and focus on that, you can tense and release, say your fist or your toes or your shoulders, and then for just a couple seconds, and then release. And this is another great one too, before you're going into something big and important, or right before you go to bed. The walking body scan. So mindfulness can also be movement, whether that's yoga or that's walking or other exercise, and focusing on the things that you can see and feel in your physical sensations. I wanted to take time to share a little bit about what Iowa State University Extension and Outreach and 4-H are offering to help support and empower young people and any caring adults in any state, as they mentioned in the bio, can get involved in this as a volunteer if you're truly passionate about exposing more youth to some more of these important things that they can do and skills to help them develop. One is a 6-lesson workshop series for grades 7 through 12. It's called The Mindful Teen from Surviving to Thriving, and it's based on this book by Dr. Zoom Bo, who is an adolescent medicine specialist with the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. We're excited. He's actually going to do a virtual workshop at our Thrive retreat this weekend. And visit us. And so there are 6 lessons, 60 minutes, but it can be very adaptable. We have the Cedar Rapids School District that incorporated this and piloted it in one of their middle schools this past year. And they did 12 30-minute sessions with that. And there's a lot of unique partnerships that are developing because of this as well. Youth get a book. They get the book that's on the right. They also get a journal. And so it's a very experiential learning experience for the 6 lessons. Some positive reflections. It's always great to see that what we're doing is helping and that they take away some of these skills and some of these really cool feelings, that they're feeling more calm, less stressed, that it's okay to feel that way, no matter what it is that they're feeling. And also that they feel strong and healthy and beautiful. They're more confident, taking time to reflect and be grateful, and to be more open about feelings. And that's, again, being talking about this and having conversations about mental health. We had a parent of a participant of Mindful Teen that talked about how it was helpful, the breathing techniques and other relaxation techniques, even that connection with other young people, and it really helped with him as another tool and another more options in addition to the mental health therapy. We do have a training offered 2 or 3 times a year. The next one is October 3rd. If you want to register for it, registration closes this Friday. I think that's 2 days from now. Yes, and you can do so at this website here. There's a link to that. This is a 4 to 5 hour training, and you receive the book, the facilitator guide that goes with the curriculum, and a journal and other materials. And these are topics that we cover, an introduction to mindfulness, and then we dive into a little bit deeper about how to and best practices to teach mindfulness to young people. This program too does align with Iowa Department of Course standards, the National Health Education standards with the CDC, and the Shape America standards. Some other Iowa State Extension and 4-H programming recommendations. Extension offers adult and youth mental health first aid. Highly recommend for anyone. And we have virtual and in-person options. We also are working through and vetting through Erica's Lighthouse, the Shine Light on Depression. It's a website that has free online toolkit with ready-to-use resources and lessons for grades 4 through 12. There's a lot of other 4-H curriculum, and it continues to be developed, and there's some examples of that there. So if you partner with or you contact your local county extension office, or you're welcome to reach out to me, and I can help make that connection on how you can get involved and access this. We also developed and are piloting grades 4 through 6. It's a day camp, and it really introduces and talks about mindfulness, but other different fun, engaging activities for young people. And so we're doing fall and winter pilots in 4 areas of the state, and then hopefully it will be launched in other areas of the state next spring or summer. The Thrive Youth Adult Retreat, I'll share just in a second and more about that. And then next spring, we hope to have a youth book club. So I recently read some research around one of the best ways to engage youth in conversations and get them talking about mental health is through the use of novels and reading, where there are topics or there's characters that are related to mental health or experiencing mental illness, and having having that as part of it. So you can look forward to that. If you're interested in learning more, you can contact me. Magnets, we developed these are going to be available. We just, I think, got the order in yesterday, are going to be available on the Iowa State Extension store. Anybody can order these and have them available at any events or booths, or to hand out, or for yourself or for your staff. Some self-care tips, and then some of the crisis lines, including the updated 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. The Thrive Retreat is this weekend. It'll be our second one. We're very excited, and really understanding that the youth mental health, we're all experiencing stress at all ages, and it affects the family unit. And how can we disconnect to reconnect, really, especially our teens, and whether it's a parent or another mentor or a caring adult. And so we go out to the Boone Y camp, and we offer workshops around mental health and mindfulness, as well as, and it can include mindful arts. And we have some Unity Point behavioral health counselors coming and just having kind of an open forum conversation with the adults and the youth. And then we go outside and have some fun camp activities and just be and enjoy nature and what that brings to our wellness. There is this weekend, it's too late to register, but we will keep the information updated at that website. And this was just, we had this on the magnet before, but we do this too when we present to youth, is to take a picture of this slide. And so I invite you to do that, so you have it in your phone as well. And so that way, if you or your loved one is in crisis or needs help, that you know immediately how to help them. And really, if you take anything else away from this, in addition to the just let's talk about it more, is knowing that asking for help is truly an act of strength and courage. It is not a weakness. And how we can continue to send that message to our boys and men as well, where there's an increased stigma. I don't think I have time. I don't know, Joanna, I'll ask you to close with the loving kindness meditation earlier or not.
You know, I wonder if we should close with it, but if we have a few minutes, we have a few minutes for questions. So
yep,
how
absolutely.
How long does it take generally?
Yeah, I was definitely going to ask for questions before we did that, but I appreciate that. And then whoever can stay can. But and I first wanted to thank you too for just your time and being here. As I said earlier, it's been a difficult week, and so it just means a lot to me that this is important to you all, and that you're curious and you're open to learning and helping others. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions, and if I don't know the answers, I will find out.
Well, I'm very impressed, and I kept thinking as you were going through this about how glad I am that my grandchildren have already started to do some of these things. They're only in kindergarten and first grade, and they have books at home, and the school teachers are starting to get into that. But it just looks like your efforts are widespread and really meaningful. So thank you so much for making such a difference.
Yeah, well, thank you, Julian. I appreciate that. And that's so great to hear, because I think the earlier we can do this, and, you know, that too, even thinking developmentally and creating those habits and those routines early and things is so important. And we saw the data, just how early a lot of those serious thoughts and things can happen. So I really appreciate that. And it keeps coming, it keeps growing. We welcome ideas and partnerships too. So thank you. Anybody else? Questions or comments or concerns?
Anyone? It was very thorough. I really enjoyed the exercises too. It started out kind of crazy, and now I'm feeling sort of a little more settled.
Well, that's good, because, you know, I've done, you know, presentations and workshops and trainings that range from 30 minutes to like the 4 or 5 hours. So whenever I'm trying to decide, like, what's the most important to cover in such a short amount of time, so it's a lot. And so I hope, yeah, there are at least a few practical takeaways, but also, you know, recognizing the why and seeing that. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I know that our NAMI group has been very concerned about what we're seeing in schools, and you know, the rise of suicide and so forth. And my experience in Colorado was that we were seeing suicidal ideation early, in, you know, much earlier than you'd ever think, in elementary schools and so forth. And it's just so sad that we're dealing with this at such an early age.
Yeah, it is. Even when you just say that, it just breaks my heart and gives me anxiety. And I think, but it also, you know, it motivates and inspires us to keep doing that work. And well, and our teachers and our schools are so busy, and you know, their capacity is reached. And so that's where 4-H and other organizations are thinking about, how can we support this? You know, it takes a village, and so other ways that we can incorporate that, because and really, we've had school staff and educators come to the trainings too, and just trying to find little things that they can just do, embed into what they're already teaching, that doesn't seem like something else, something extra. And I think the more that we continue to raise awareness, it reduces that stigma. And so that way families feel a little bit more comfortable in talking about this and stuff, because it's scary, you know, and it's not something that has, you know, been talked about a long time, but they're asking for it and they need it, and it truly can save lives. So yes.
I know that I'm going to be recommending it. I'm taking the NAMI family to family class, and the folks in the class all have members in their family with serious mental illness, and many of them have just tragic stories. And I think that this would be a wonderful thing for themselves, not just, you know, to help teach their loved one, but really for themselves, because their
Yeah.
lives are so stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did get from one school district asked if I would do something for a staff PD. And I mean, this could be its own full-time position on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have to stick K-12 as my audience. And so they still come to the training and they still take away stuff. And we talk about, because it's important when we're teaching mindfulness and having these conversations that we're authentic, and that anytime that we can practice what we're teaching and what we're preaching, it helps that kind of buy-in. Our young people are going to emulate what they see and what they hear. And so hopefully that does help. And I, by the way, speaking of NAMI too, and again, thank you. We have had Ending the Silence presentations done through 4-H, through our staff. And I just really appreciate those. And I think it's really powerful when you can have those with lived experience share their stories. And I'm very open about mine as well. And I was very skeptical about this too when my mom recommended it to me during one of my major depressive episodes. She took me to a psychologist and said, just try this mindfulness, this meditation thing. And I was like, what? And then ever since, I just have, found different things that work for me. As we mentioned earlier, it's really about finding what types of mindful practices work for you. I have ADHD, and so there are certain ones, if they're not guided meditations, it's very difficult for me to kind of stay focused and things like that. So it's just a matter of finding, what works for each person. And if it can be a family practice, you do individual practice and family, just kind of leads to this youth adult retreat this weekend, then that can help as well. And it becomes kind of a routine and helps everybody.
Right. Well, we're all very sorry about your loss of your loved one too. It's very difficult. I know. Thank you for pushing through. And shows how resilient you are. So
I'm glad I did. I'm like, this is why I do what I do. And so, yeah, she's surrounding me today as I continue to this important work, and appreciate all that you all are doing as well. So I thank you so much for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do it then.
Okay. So this is just, I said, I think 3 to 5 minutes, and then we can close. Whoops. Again, there we go.
Welcome to Loving Kindness Meditation. To begin this meditation, find a comfortable seated position. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and close them now. If you'd rather keep your eyes open, simply look down at the floor without focusing on anything in particular. In this meditation, you're going to send kindness, compassion, and wishes for well-being, starting with yourself and then extending that to others. As you send wishes of loving kindness, breathe mindfully, noticing whatever is happening for you as best you can without any expectations or judgments. Start by picturing yourself in your mind, becoming as aware of yourself as you can. Then, send loving kindness to yourself, repeating these phrases silently to yourself. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Breathing and noticing whatever arises for you right now. Continuing to breathe mindfully, now picturing someone or some being whom you feel close to. This could be a person like a family member or a best friend, or it could be an animal or a pet or any other being who you feel close to and feel comfortable and safe with. Picturing that person or being as best you can in your imagination. Sending them loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be at peace. Now picturing someone or some being in your life who you have neutral feelings towards. This could be someone who you see around your neighborhood or around school, who you don't have much of a relationship with, but they're part of your life in some way. Picturing them as best you can in your mind's eye. Aware that their well-being is related to your well-being, that you're interconnected with them in some way. Breathing with this awareness and sending them loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be at peace. Now picturing someone whom you have some difficulty with, perhaps an argument or a conflict. Aware that your own peace and well-being is somehow related and interconnected with theirs. Breathing in awareness, breathing out loving kindness to that person. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be at peace. Breathing and just noticing what's happening for you right now without any expectation or judgment. Now widening your awareness and imagining all beings in the entire world, knowing that your wellness and your happiness is somehow connected and related to all beings in the entire world, and sending loving kindness to all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace.
All right. And so I love those. And I just imagine just how much more beautiful and kind and peaceful our world would be if each of us practiced that, every once in a while. And you can do it without a guided meditation like this, and you can create your own phrases and who you send loving kindness to and do it on your own. But that is it for today. Again, thank you so much for your time and your attention, and I hope you all are well.
Thank you very much, Tiffany.